Broadcasting from Orchard Park, New York,
and Boca Raton, Florida,
it's the Freight 360 podcast. From freight broker sales tips to sports talk, this podcast is all about helping you grow as a freight broker. We're your hosts, Nate Cross
and Benjamin Kowalski.
Let's talk freight. All right, we're back. Episode 127. I'm pumped because this is the episode before Super Bowl 56, man. We're going to talk sports in a second here. We got a full Q&A episode today because we've gotten so many of you have reached out with questions. We're going to answer them all as today's episode, and it's going to be a good one. Right? We got a lot of beginner questions, some technology questions. We've got cash flow factoring questions, customers questions. We're going to touch on all of it. So welcome back, episode 127 of the Freight 360 podcast. Make sure to leave that review. We've been ranking good. Our downloads are at an all-time high. We're just growing and growing and growing. I think our friends over at Lean explained it. If you're watching on YouTube, just like going up and up and up. You know, going up like it's crazy. So, but it's good. We got a lot of good content coming up here, and yeah, man, share us with your friends. Keep the tribe growing here. So, Ben, since I'm going to Florida next week, I've been tracking the Florida weather and. Dude, it's a little chilly down there this week, huh?
It depends on where you're at. I would say,
yeah, maybe not for you in South Florida, but I saw like 50s and stuff.
Yeah, today I think today was the coldest day of the week. Our low where I'm at was 64 when I woke up this morning, so I had to throw on a long sleeve shirt to walk the puppies, but not exactly like sweatshirt or shoe weather. It's going back up to like I think mid to high 70s tomorrow, so it was a pretty brief cold front.
So I'm going to the Gulf side near Tampa, Clearwater area, but so our weather forecast for next week is tracking like it's gonna be kind of chilly. Like the first couple of days is like 60, low 60s, and then it'll be up closer to 80 later in the week. So, but it's like 50 here in Buffalo today, man. My ice rink's getting a natural resurface from Mother Nature, melt off that top layer and refreeze when it gets below freezing tomorrow.
Mother Nature Zamboni.
Don't have to do anything.
Little nice. Zamboni action from Mother Nature.
Yeah, dude, I got out there skating a couple times recently. It's in good shape. So definitely got some life left in it as we get through February here and March. So, all right, let's talk. Let's talk sports, right? It's the big game, right? That's everyone calls it the big game because for copyright reasons, you can't like say Super Bowl unless you are the NFL, right? Like so, like when people are on TV with commercials, they just call it the big game. Well, come after us, NFL, because I'm calling it the Super Bowl on the podcast here. You've got the LA Rams essentially hosting at home because it just happens to be that the SoFi Stadium in LA is where it's being played. They're hosting the Cincinnati Bengals, who no one really thought that they were going to go to the Super Bowl this year. But here, I've got in our show notes the betting stats on it as of like this morning. Rams are favored by 4.5 points, and the over/under is estimated at 48.5 points. Now, it's considered like the biggest sports betting game or day of the year because you can bet on like how long the national anthem's going to be and like who's going to win the coin toss,
the first. Everything. Down how long? Yeah, literally just so many prop bets in the entire thing.
Oh yeah, but I'll tell you, here's what I'm taking out of the game. I think the Rams are going to win, but I think it's going to be a close one, and I think it's going to be lower scoring because the defenses are a pretty good matchup against each quarterback, and I think the Bengals are going to hang in there until the end, and they're going to end up trying to go like Hail Mary towards the end because they're going to be out of field goal range to tie it up or to win or something like that. So I'm taking the Bengals to cover 4.5, but LA I think will still win, and I'm taking the under. So that's my bets. We'll have to recap it next week and see how I did. So the Bengals could win, and I would still win my bet. Those are the two bets I actually placed though: is Bengals plus 4.5 and the under 48.5.
I think Cincinnati's got a shot only for the sense that, like, I don't know, they've been in the AFC. They're an Ohio team. I'm grown up as, as a Pittsburgh guy, like, just kind of not liking Cincinnati or Cleveland. But, obviously seeing a team that you're that close with for that many years finally make it there, like, I'm really pulling for Cincinnati. I really do hope they can somehow find a way to, well, shit. I mean, I wouldn't have expected Kansas City not to make it, and I wouldn't have expected Buffalo not to have made it. And the fact that they did, hey, maybe there's something to it, and hopefully they can find a way to upset them.
They're on a hot streak, man. So if there ever was a time for them to take it all, now is the time. So
literally the only time, because they've never made it this far. So there was never a time before this.
Olympics now too. So we're in the Olympics. It's so hard to watch because they're 13 hours ahead of the East Coast.
Peacock,
right? So
man. You download Peacock? I just figured it out last night.
They're just getting started off, right?
Well, Peacock, I just figured it out last night because most of the stuff I watch is like the first couple days, like Dude, Men's Moguls.
Audio at all right now.
What?
Are you muted?
Okay. No, I didn't think I was.
Muted? Hang on.
No, you sound fine. My mic looks hot. It's spiking hot.
I click on media. It's on my end. What's
my
mic's on here, MacBook. Hang on.
Your volume just turned down on the app.
Mac user here.
Go to your volume.
Microphone's good. Camera's good. Speaker.
You have a volume on. Did you get your new keyboard yet? There's a volume button on your keyboard.
Yep. So that now I was able to change it to the MacBook speakers, external headphones. Let's try. Yeah, I got that. Did I press something wrong? Oh, that audio, I can hear it now. Your audio is coming through my MacBook, but when I put it back to my speakers, there we go. I'm good. All right, let me try that again. So the Olympics is on. It's hard to watch though. 13 hours ahead. What have you been tracking it at all?
Well, I just started watching it last night actually because I'm a big Winter Olympics guy over summer. I just love skiing, and that was always my favorite sport. And it's the only time where it's like, excuse me, there's actually like professional skiing where like kind of everybody watches. So like men's moguls, men's big air, men's freestyle, half pipe skiing. And the men's moguls was on Saturday, but last night I downloaded Peacock, and you can watch all the replays on demand. So as long as you're not following the scores online, it's kind of real time. I'll tell you, I mean, there's a lot of commercials in the app, but it is kind of nice that you could literally just sit down whenever you want, find the event, and then just play it.
Yeah, it's funny because like the Winter Olympics, I'm with you. I like the winter. I mean, I like them both. The Winter Olympics, I feel like there's way less sports, and I love snow sports. So like snowboarding, downhill skiing, stuff like that. I had a buddy that I went to high school with that competed in was it Vancouver, like back in 2012 maybe, or 2010 or whatever, in British Columbia, in the aerials. So I've always loved watching stuff like that. And, dude, the moguls, you watch it in slow motion, and I'm like, how do they not bust their knees? It's insane.
Well, I used to
downhill stuff. Like, dude, they're going like 80 miles an hour. It's insane.
Did love it. And it's like that was my favorite thing growing up was skiing moguls. Like still to this day, it's been a while since I've been out, but I like mogul skiing more than any other activity I've ever done in my entire life. It's probably the only thing that I would say I'd probably choose over golf in my entire life. Like between mogul skiing and going to play golf are like my two by far favorite sports.
Yep. So we'll see how it wraps up here. You got some interesting hockey stuff because I think like definitely the U.S., maybe it was Canada too, but definitely the U.S., there's no NHL players that are competing in the Olympics. And I believe it's the same for Canada because they both play in the NHL, Canadian and U.S. citizens. So it's pretty much like back to 1980 Miracle style where it's all like college kids and stuff like that and amateurs that are representing Team USA. The women's team had a pretty good start, although they lost to Canada, which people expect that Canada and U.S. will rematch in the Gold Cup match, but who knows? On the golf side, Pebble Beach, did you watch on Sunday?
I didn't.
Dude, Spieth had it. He had it within arm's reach, man. He was ahead by 2 strokes, like with 3 holes to go. He gets a bogey, and the dude behind him got back-to-back birdies and ended up clinching the win. I forget who it was, but yeah, sad day. He had a good comeback too. He was
I like Jordan a lot. He's good,
yeah, he wasn't
good golfer
favored by any means like early on, but he played really really strong. I think on Saturday to get himself towards the front runner there. But yeah, so that's sports. Anything else around? Oh, you know, it's funny. I saw speaking of the Super Bowl, I saw a funny meme today. It was like a fake report from the NFL from Commissioner Roger Goodell. It was like, 2 years in a row now, unfortunately, there's an unfair home field advantage for a Super Bowl team. Happened with Tampa Bay last year, and it's happening with LA this year. They said, so and obviously it's a joke, but moving forward, we're gonna make sure that the Super Bowl is played at a stadium where the home team will not be competing. So it's gonna be played in Dallas at AT&T Stadium every single year.
I was gonna say Detroit, Dallas, one of the two.
Right there you go. But yeah, good stuff. All right, give us a shout out to our friends over at DAT Freight and Analytics before we hop into the Q&A session today.
Taking the guesswork out of freight with DAT. The DAT Load Board Network is the largest on-demand freight marketplace in North America, connecting freight brokers with available capacity on any lane. Grow your business with tools that allow you to find new business partners, and you can quickly qualify and onboard new carriers. And with the industry's leading freight rate data, you can make clear and confident pricing decisions. Check out the show notes for a free month of Trucker's Edge, Express, or DAT Power.
That's it, man. That's it. And we're going to talk about some DAT products here in the Q&A. Somebody was asking about quoting and rates and stuff like that. We're gonna dig into it. Well, cool. Like I said, today is all Q&A. You guys asked, and we're gonna answer. Right? What was it Radio Shack? That's like, you've got questions, we've got answers, and now they're not in business anymore.
The Shack.
Okay. Yep. Oh yeah. Why did they go down? Was that just because Best Buy and all the bigger box stores? Even Circuit City went under. They're a big box store. But.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, well, that and I would say online probably ate away at a lot of their margins. But Radio Shack had that monopoly. Man, well, when you needed something back in the day, it was the only place you could go and actually get and know you were going to get what you needed. I mean.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Competition.
Now, thanks to Jeff Bezos and Amazon, everything's online. Dude, did you see? Side note, not to get off track. Do you see the yacht he's building?
Yeah, they have to tear down that bridge, and I think it was in the Netherlands, and then rebuild it.
Yep, they're going to dismantle it and put it back up. Hey, man, $500 million yacht. Good for him.
The world's richest man. I mean, they have done far crazier things throughout human history for somebody that manages that amount of wealth and that amount of influence. And plus, hey, I mean, what I read was pretty cool, actually. I mean, he's going to pay for the jobs. It's going to create jobs in the city. He's going to reinvest in it. So, I mean, it's in no way some rich person taking advantage of the system. He's willing to pay to get it done, and people are more than happy to accept payment to help.
Yep.
That's what makes the world go round. MONEY.
Correct. All right. So, first question up is, how do I grow my brokerage? Pretty vague question here, but, a lot of times folks will fill out a form on our website or the contact us form there, and that's all they write is something vague. So, but that's a good topic, right? How do you grow your brokerage? Well, we've broken this down. We did a how to grow your book of business in 2021. We did it last year in January, I believe, so just over a year ago. And I think you and I, we focused on three main ways to grow, right? New customers, growing your existing customers, and I think we talked about leveraging your carrier network or something like that.
Well,
but
yeah, so you can always, there's three ways to grow, right? It's you can go and bring on new customers. The second one is you can penetrate your existing customers, and mine just blanked.
I think those are the main two. I think our third tip there was to grow the carrier base to allow you.
Yeah, adding new, penetrating what you have, and I mean those are the two primary. But I mean honestly, you can get more profitable in the lanes you are running. So I guess technically there's a third, and you can grow your book, or not necessarily grow your book, but grow your profit margin within the amount of load you're doing by getting different carriers and finding more efficiencies. Yep. So I would say there's
let's break those down in a nutshell, right? New customers is obvious, right? That is prospecting 101. You're contacting new shippers that you're not currently working with in the hopes to add some new shippers to your book of business. And how do you do that? It's cold outreach. It's referrals. It's following that BOL that you've got access to for every load and finding out where is this inbound load shipping out of? Where is this outbound load delivering to, right? Those are all free leads for you. This could be who do you know in the industry or that works in some capacity at a company that ships anything, and how can you get one degree closer to that shipping department or that traffic manager? That's that's going to be your new customers. Existing customers, look at how you've done for them so far, and where have you grown capacity? What are some additional lanes that you can start to work on for them? Or maybe more volume in existing lanes? Or do they have a mini bid coming up or something like that, or a new project that they're going to be working on? That's a great way. You've already got a track record of success or some kind of track record with this company. It's a great way to grow your book of business is with that existing customer base. And the third one we mentioned is to grow it by having thicker margins or more profitable business overall in your existing business, and that's going to be by developing a carrier base. And it could also be on your strengthening your customer relationship and understanding that, hey, if you need this moved, right away, yes, I can get you a carrier. But if you can give me a couple of days, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go find in the marketplace the best available capacity at a good rate, and you're going to have less expensive carriers because you're going to be able to identify the ones that it's less empty miles, it's a more desirable location for them, it's possibly a backhaul or whatever the case might be. Those are the three big things in my eyes. What do you think? You got anything else on that?
Yeah, so to go in a little bit deeper is one, I think, and I just happen to have two clients I was working on this very issue with over the past 2 days. One of which is we really take for granted in brokerage the amount of time it takes to do a task. For instance, like if you build a load and then you jump back to something else, then jump to something else, then build the next load, right? Very few times does somebody sit and think like, did that take me 3.5 minutes or did that take me 5.5 minutes, right? And I'll give you an example of my own book of business, right? So on any given day, like the way our loads come in, we might be building like 60, 70 loads at a time, right? And then maybe not for 12 hours and maybe get 40, then 30, right? Now, we've literally timed this. How long does it take you to do it when you do them individually? Now, it would take between 4 and 5.5 minutes to enter all the information in. We found that when you batch them all together and you do it one after another, you can do them in about 40% less time, right? And here's the thing, right? People go like, oh, I just never have enough time. There's no way I'm going to get to it. There's too many things to do, right? But this is just like a real concrete example of where you can get more time, right? So on average, I mean, if you're building 70 loads and it takes you 3 extra minutes or, almost twice as long to do them and then do something else and then jump back and build it, then to answer a call, then to come back, then to check an email, right? 70 times 6 minutes is 230 minutes, right? What's 230 divided by 6? Like it's almost 3 hours and 40 minutes, give or take, I'm guessing, right? Like, not that I'm good with public math.
You're blowing my head up with your math right now, but I'm following.
But give or take, right? So 70 loads, if it takes you 5 minutes, right, it takes you 5 times that amount, right? Now, if you can get that down even 2 minutes per transaction, right, like you're saving like almost an hour and a half a day, right? Now, think what you could do if somebody gifted you an extra hour a day. You're probably telling yourself you can't grow your book because you can't prospect, because you can't get time to generate leads, because you can't get on the phone, because you're doing all these other things. These are the things we need to batch together to get that time back.
I totally agree, man. So it sounds like kind of what you're outlining in there is efficiency in your workday. And we've seen it with putting the right people in the right jobs and figuring out how can you eliminate duplication of efforts and things like that.
It is, but it's even within your own self, right? And I think everybody just, myself included, and especially when I talk about this or when I've worked with people and I've had to work on this in my own book and in what I do in my own behavior is it's really hard to conceptualize that it's worth spending the time to change your behavior because it doesn't feel like there's an ROI on it. Like it doesn't feel like it's worth, and everybody has these habits, right? Has these habits that have been developed over months, weeks, years, most people years, right? Oh, I build these loads, I grab this call, like this is just the way I do it, and I'm the fastest at this way, right? Well, like that's really just the narrative and the story we tell ourselves. The reality is objectively, if you sat next to yourself and were able to be outside of it, you'd probably find a lot more of these things that you're able to find all these little things add up because that's really where the time comes from. It's not like it magically appears. You've got to find these efficiencies in all the little things that we do throughout the day.
I agree. You've got to take ownership in that process and how you conduct your own business. So, good stuff. All right, let's move on to the next question here. The listener asks, where do I start as a beginner to learn the trade? And they had a little bit more context to the question. Basically, like what kind of roles what kind of companies or roles or positions can you start off in the freight and transportation world to set yourself up for success long term as a freight broker? It's a great question, and there's no right or wrong answer here. Different companies will position their new folks in different roles on purpose because that's how their progression of employees and their development works. But let's say you're brand new and you're starting your own brokerage and you want to learn. I love the idea of someone going and either mentoring or shadowing, or I should say being mentored by, or shadowing, or taking a part-time job or just a entry-level job at a brokerage to be exposed to it and learn what they like, what they don't like, or if they figure out if they like it at all. And they kind of get some exposure. Specifically, operations side is a really, really good place to start because you're going to learn exactly what you're dealing with on the front lines that's affecting your customers' access to capacity in the marketplace, right? If you're out there literally trying to get loads covered and check calling drivers, and you understand what the drivers are dealing with, what they want, what they don't want, just what their overall job consists of and how it is for them, you're going to be a much better broker and customer-facing account manager to your shipping customers. That's my opinion. I personally started on the asset side to learn the carrier side of the business. When you started, you probably worked under a broker on some of their operations stuff for their loads, right? So, I mean, what's your take on this? What's a good place to get started to learn the industry?
So I same thought. I mean, I think, and it's the same way I learned it, is it's really simple, right? A freight broker sells one thing. We sell access to trucks. We sell the service, right? Well, what's the best way to learn about the product you're selling? Spend time understanding what's happening with that, right? So track and trace, operations, check calls, and like rates. Understand what you're paying and just the minutia and just the repetitiveness of doing check calls, making sure the rates match, making sure BOLs are in there, making sure your PODs match. All of the tasks that are done on that operations role are the best place, in my opinion, to learn the industry. Because you learn not only the ins and outs, right, but the nuances of why it works and why it doesn't.
So here's a good analogy, right, outside of freight. Think about any good, successful company that sells typically a product, right? Here's what came to my mind. If you go to a Ford dealership, what are the sales reps there driving? Fords. They know the product. I remember when I used to go to American Eagle to buy clothes like in high school, they all had to wear American Eagle clothes, right? They had to literally represent the product that they were selling at the cash register. If you go to the Apple store, do you think these are people that are using Android phones? No. They're all going to be iPhone and Mac users, right? They understand the product that they're bringing to the customer, and you need to understand as a broker the service of the carrier capacity and carrier options. You need to understand that to be able to present those options with any kind of understanding and intelligence to your customers.
And you got, absolutely, you got to know the product you're selling, because here's the other side. Back to our first question, how do you grow your brokerage? You grow your brokerage by reaching out, talking to new potential prospects, right? But once you've talked to them, like, how do you uncover the need for them to work with you? It's by understanding the need you have as a brokerage to support your other customers. It's the same thing. And that's how you understand this, because like at the end of the day, and I say this a lot, but like sales is just a transference of emotion. I cannot get you to understand how frustrating it is when a truck doesn't pick your load up if I don't personally know how frustrating it is to rely on somebody that let me down. And when I can convey that to you, it's way more likely I'm going to get you to understand where I'm coming from and to get you to understand that I care about it as much as you do.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, that's a good setup to our next question of how do I get customers, right? So you do a lot of coaching with prospecting and lead generation and things of that nature. So getting customers it's a vague question, right? We have plenty of content and episodes that talk about lead generation sources, right? You can use ZoomInfo, Googling, Chambers of Commerce, Resource USA, referrals, right? You could all kinds of stuff. And we talk about having a niche. The customer acquisition process, though, talk to me through that from a high-level view. Let's say you've generated your leads. What is that process to convert a lead into a customer? What does that look like?
It looks like speaking with them between 8 and a dozen times, right? And expect that the first few conversations, like, and this is the biggest thing that I've learned, coaching and working, and we've picked up, working with our group clients, is like, when you're new at this, the instinct is to pick up the phone, call somebody, and say, hey, I'm so-and-so from so-and-so brokerage. I want to discuss your transportation needs. And then they wait for the prospect, the shipper, to just tell them their needs, and then to just tell them, what they need help with, and then to direct the conversation. So I would say the biggest thing for people that are new starting out on this is you've got to expect to direct this call. You're the one steering the ship. You cannot reach out to somebody and try to solicit business without you being able to steer this conversation. So the biggest thing I could say of how you should go get more customers when you're actually on the phone is have a list of the questions that are commonly asked in this part of the conversation. How many truckloads do you ship a week? How many truckloads do you ship a day? Is this your busy season? When is your busy season? Do you ship full truckload? How many other people are over there doing the same job as you? When do you get your loads? When do they need to go out, right? And having a list of these prepared, ready, right above your phone so you're not struggling to find the questions you need to really direct the conversation. They're your ammunition.
So I want to, and I'm going to throw a link in the episode notes in the YouTube description box for this, but I came across the video. It popped up in like my recommended thing the other day, and it was titled, I got it pulled up on another monitor, Cold Calling Shippers. It's got like almost 50,000 views, and it's by a guy with that handle, Freight Agent. I think his name's Orlando. I don't know if you've ever seen this. He sets up a camera and just records himself dialing for like 15 minutes. And I will tell you that great to watch if you're brand new and you want to understand the rhythm of cold calling and the rejection. What I almost wish I could have this guy on the show and be like, to coach him on what he was doing, what he could have worked on better. Because he did exactly what we tell you not to do, which is, hey, I'm so-and-so over at ABC Logistics, was looking to get set up with you. And I listened to a few of his calls and his dials, and every single time he was told no. Although
there was not a win?
Different approach.
Wait,
he had a different approach on one of them, and he got like an LTL load to work on. Okay. But it was all, we're not adding anybody, or we're all customer routed, or sure, email me your information, but we don't have anything for the next couple months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's interesting, though.
It is, and I mean, hey, kudos to him for putting himself out there and to make these calls and to put this content out there.
For sure. Yeah.
Here's what I would say, and it's not a knock and it's not a criticism to anybody out there that is doing that, because I am certain, beyond a believable doubt, we have somebody listen to this that has a huge customer they got by doing this. But the reason I don't advocate it, we don't advocate it or talk a lot about it, is the fact that like this is what the majority of people are doing, right? So, like, when literally tens of thousands of people every day are calling shippers and doing this, it's just much less likely for you to be able to kind of, like, differentiate yourself, really, from the other people. Stick your head above the others, right? Because from their point of view, answering the phone, like, they don't really have any reason to pick one over the next if so many people tend to say the same thing. So the reason we advocate, like, having a reason you're calling that should be unique to your brokerage, or maybe even you, the broker, or maybe even just your book of business, is that you're way more likely to differentiate yourself from the other people that person heard call them that morning, an hour before, the day before, 20 times yesterday. It all depends on the size of the shipper.
You're correct. My biggest takeaway, and this goes for any sales role in any industry, you've got to be unique. You've got to find what is good and special about your personality and your approach, what's likable and magnetic about you that people will want to listen to you, want to have a conversation with you, and they want to do business with you. And that, a lot of that comes down to personality. And I've mentioned it before, the brokers in the company that I work for, I have a great rapport, a great relationship with them because we get along. It's a personality thing, and to me, that's more important than anything else.
And here's something interesting, right? And I've been researching a lot on this, on how this actually occurs so that we can, teach more of it, right? Like psychologically. And it's very similar to what happens in social media. When we as human beings are vulnerable, when we are willing to talk about something that we feel like kind of exposes who we really are as a human being, Those are the things that really connect us with another human being. So if you think about who you follow on Instagram or anywhere on social, doesn't matter where it is, the people you likely follow are somebody that was willing to be vulnerable about something, share something that you personally connected with. And in our world, shipping and prospecting, it sounds kind of fluffy, like, well, what am I going to do? Like, just share random weird things with a shipper? And that's not what we're advocating. But what I will say is, here's where it really happens, and I can tell you from personal experience where my relationships have really kind of grown from these scenarios. It's when something goes wrong. It's when shit hits the fan, you've got a load, it didn't go the way you wanted, and when you literally call that person and you're terrified because you just told them that load was good maybe a half an hour ago, and then the carrier calls you and said, yeah, I know I told you I was checking in, but I'm really 100 miles out and I can't make it because I'm still at the last shipper. Like one of those situations. Why those tend to be like endearing or super beneficial to your relationship is because that's when we've got to be vulnerable as a human being. We have to be willing to tell this person we barely know, we've spoken to maybe, 2-3 times? Call them and say, honestly, like the people that I told you I was responsible for, that I vetted, that I said you could rely on, did not come through. And I let you down as a result of it. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and get you somebody else, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes, and I'm willing to tell you up front so that you can look for other options as soon as I found out about it. That is the vulnerability that happens once you have a load or two moving, and that's what really skyrockets the relationship from just another broker to they can trust you now. And they can trust you because you're willing to be honest with things other people weren't.
Integrity, man. You need to have your integrity and your cell phone. If you lose either one,
you're screwed.
Done. That's it. All right, next question is on technology. Which TMS should I use? People ask this a lot. Here's the deal. There are a bunch of TMS platforms out there. We have not used all of them. We've used a bunch. We've demoed a bunch. We endorse a couple of them, and we'll talk about those. At the end of the day, if you're looking for a TMS, check out a bunch of them and find out what you like and what functionally works well for your business. Because just like we talked about cars before, right? There's Ford, there's Chevy, there's Lincoln, there's Kia, there's Hyundai, right? Like not only one of them is going to be good, right? Although there was like a recall for like 500,000 cars the other day that'll start on fire. But there's a lot of options out there, and a lot of it will come down to preference and what you personally like, what it has to offer. So the two that we personally endorse are Ascend TMS and Rose Rocket TMS. You can check out a link in our episode notes or description box for the affiliate section of our website, and you'll see links in there that you'll get, a free month or the best price, whatever the case is. We've vetted these out. We've checked them out. They're really cool. They both have the free trial version too, or the paid version as well, and really cool, cloud-based. I'm a fan of that. I like being able to access from anywhere and not have to worry about it being on just one computer. That's always a nice thing. So check them out. Think about what tools do you want. Like, for example, do you want something that is visually appealing or more robust in its functionality? Like, for example, McLeod, not very visually appealing, but it's got a million tools. Ascend and Rose Rocket have some pretty good functionality, and they have a great user interface. But they're more so designed for that small to mid-sized broker. So you're not going to have every single tool or option that a $1 million customized TMS for your company is going to have.
Here's the other thing.
Check out a bunch of them, demo them, see what you like. That's what I think.
Here's what I would.
You can always wait.
I would add to that is that, like, just like vehicles, what might have worked for you last year or the last time you shopped might not be the right program for you now, right? Things change, your customers change, your needs change. So think about the tasks that you do the most, like literally the most volume of tasks. And when you're vetting these, see which one of those have your top 2 or 3 priorities that really work the way you want. Because not everybody's doing the same thing, right? Like, maybe you're doing 5% drayage and mostly full truckload. Maybe you're doing a lot of LTL. Maybe you do a lot of load volume and low margin. Like, there are going to be different nuances that are important to you based on your customers. So, like, make a list before you start vetting them of the tasks that you do the most and the ones you want to be able to expedite. Like, just get done faster. Because at the end of the day, that's all a TMS is. It's a tool to make you more efficient and effective.
I will say Tim from Ascend, I see a lot of his stuff on LinkedIn. Dude, they're adding so much stuff to Ascend, and like it's just all inclusive if you have an account with them. Like they have a new LTL rater that's free in there. It's direct pricing with all the big LTL companies, free tracking, stuff like that. Really neat. So yeah, check a bunch of those out. All right, next, factoring companies. What factoring company should I use as a new broker? Well, to be honest, you're not going to have a lot of options as a brand new broker. A lot of these companies, they won't touch you unless you've got a few months under your belt already, because they want to know that you're actually going to be good for, a good business option for them. So the same way you have to hustle and grind to get your first customers, you're going to probably have to hustle and grind and build relationships with someone at a factoring company to allow you to use them from the beginning. For example, like Travis at Axel,
yeah.
He's honest with us about, hey, I'll take on smaller brokers, which some companies won't, but like a lot of other companies, they don't prefer a brand new out of the gate broker that has no experience and no idea what they're doing. So it's a tough one.
But it's a decent option. So I mean, if you're in our Facebook group, Freight Brokers and Carriers Network, Travis Hodges, Hodges, at Axel, AXLE. If you just throw him in any of the questions, or even if you just tag him in there, he'll answer any of your questions about whether or not you'd be a good fit, because he's been really great with, like Nate said, a lot of our newer brokers and people like just starting out into the industry.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, but don't expect like a Triumph Capital or anything like that to want to take you on when you're brand new. So,
well, here's some numbers too. If people are wondering where that benchmark is, like Triumph, when we had Mac on the show last year, was like $50K a month gross sales, right? So if you're doing $50,000 a month in sales, like that's kind of the benchmark they feel like. And to be honest, from their point of view, like Nate said, like there's got to be enough, like, juice in it for them. They got to make sure that, one, you do enough load volume for it to be worth them to process it, and two, you're likely to stay in business if they are going to start working with you.
Yep. That's it. All right, next, can I move LTL and full truckload under different authorities? Interesting question, and here is my answer. If you're an independent agent, you can 100% be an agent with a company that you do your full truckload with, and maybe a different brokerage for your LTL. And in that scenario, yes, you are moving full truckload and LTL under two different authorities. You could be a freight broker that does full truckload that has a co-broker agreement in place to do your LTL. Yes, that absolutely could happen. Here's the big thing: is you are not as an employee or an agent of a brokerage. You are not. There's not like an exclusivity thing from the FMCSA on your, which MC you're representing. Think about dispatchers, right? They represent multiple carrier MCs. You just have to make it very transparent to your customer, because that invoice is going to come from whatever company is whoever's authority it is, right? So if you're with ABC Brokerage for your LTL and XYZ for your full truckload, your customer's going to get two different invoices if they're moving both through you.
I don't really see the benefit.
It gets messy. I prefer to keep it all under one roof if you can, for simplicity. But there's no legal restriction on it, if that makes sense.
Why would you? I can't really even think of a reason that there's liability that I would want to have like severed from the other. I don't even.
So the big one is the one I mentioned with LTL, with like a company like Priority One or Global Trans. Mm-hmm. They have massive buying power and purchase power and all that, so they get really steep discounted rates through XPO and SDs and YRC and all these LTL carriers. So for that reason, that's their specialty is LTL. You can get really competitive LTL pricing if you're brokering with them or under their authority.
But why would you?
But they may lack in their full truckload side. Like I've talked to agents that have been told at Global Trans, you can do all your LTL. It's going to be great, but you're going to get a lesser commission percentage on your full truckload, and we're gonna move all of it for you on our operations side. So it's like, whoa. So I'm gonna do good on LTL, but your truckload side isn't as competitive. Or there's companies that they're really strong on the truckload side, but their LTL rates aren't that great. So if you've got a lot of LTL, you may want to try and push under two different companies. Does that make sense?
It does. I just mean, like, if I'm a brokerage owner, why would I want to start another MC to just separate FTL from LTL?
So if you're a brokerage owner, it's a different story. Yeah.
That's how I read it. I was like, the good question.
So
I thought it was
this would be someone that maybe is an employee or an independent contractor or an agent. And, yeah.
Okay, that makes
So,
sense.
like, for example, I think if I remember correctly, she started her own brokerage for full truckload, but wanted to go maybe be an agent for an LTL brokerage to get pricing for her customer.
I got it.
Because she couldn't get it herself.
Yeah, in that case, you'd have a co-brokerage agreement underneath it, and you would, supply LTL.
You could be a co-brokerage, or you could just go be an agent for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways. There's no, like I said, there's no restriction on it. But yeah. Do I need customer and carrier packets as a new broker? Carrier packet, yes. You should have carrier packets when you set up your brokerage to contract those motor carriers for the loads that they're going to move. Customer contracts, the customer is going to usually tell you what you have to sign or agree to for them. Bigger the company is, probably the bigger the contract, the more requirements, some insurance requirements like contingent cargo, things like that. On the contrary, you can choose, it's not required, but you can choose to create a credit application for your shippers to get their billing information, be able to look them up in a credit database, have them agree to whatever standard terms that you've decided upon with them. But it's not required. But you should have a carrier packet, yes.
Yeah, and to be
honest,
honest,
any other contract stuff to add in there?
No, I mean, most of the stuff, same thing you said. Shippers are usually going to come from them. You're going to redline them. You're going to go through what you want to agree to and not. So those are usually like very situational. My suggestion is you should just set up something like My Carrier Packets. That's what the brokerage I work at uses. I mean, we don't have any rev share with them, but it's not that expensive and it saves a ton of time because you onboard a lot of carriers when you're early on in your brokerage career because you're just doing a lot of spot loads and you don't have very many to begin with. That's how you start.
My Carrier Packets and RMIS are probably the two most commonly used carrier tools like that. And what's nice about it is they interface carriers and brokers. A lot of carriers are already in their system. So if you go to add a new carrier, all they have to do is you send them a link and they just log in with their login and it's going to supply all their information to you. So good stuff. Last question here of our all Q&A episode is, what tools can I use to run quotes and rates? So there's a lot. I mentioned DAT earlier. I'm a big fan of RateView. I use it myself. RateView gives you usually like a 3 or 7 day average depending on how much data they have. TruckStop has RateMate. FreightWaves has Sonar. It's really, really intuitive. We actually just bought Sonar for my company. It's expensive, but it's really, really cool for big level analytics if you've got the volume to support its cost. Your TMS, if you work at a bigger company, probably has a ton of its own data, which is extremely valuable.
The most valuable, in my opinion. Like, I do care what the market is all the time, but I usually care more, and it's just opinion, about what I paid last week. If somebody in my organization that I know negotiated a lane, the first thing I always did, especially when I worked at a larger brokerage, was call that broker. Hey, how did you negotiate that lane? Did you find a truck that needed a backhaul, or was that a front haul rate? And then once you determine which one of the situations they were in, then you've got the context. You can ask them, like, hey, do you run this load every week? Yeah, my customer runs it every week. Okay. Do you guys typically find carriers? Like, you can find out so much information from your colleagues. The next place I'm looking at is, same ones you mentioned.
And here's another thing, too, outside of technology. You could pick up the phone and call a carrier and get a live rate from them. And here's what's cool. So Kevin Hill sent you and I over kind of like their demo for their upgraded version of, is it Carrier Lists, right? Is that what it's called? Dude, it's pretty sweet. I was playing around there this morning. And I know they have like a monthly subscription for it, depending on your size. And they have like he's got different tiers. Check out Carrier Packets. Carrier Lists. I think it's carrierlist.com or... Yeah,
we should throw a link up in the show notes. But it's a great product because it's a really great avenue to find more carriers, especially if you're, new in the industry and you're just starting to get on your feet.
Carrierlists.com. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. You can go through and search, like, you just type a lane in there into your equipment, and you can get as specific as you want, and it'll spit out all the carriers that match capacity in that lane based on their profile and what they've identified. And Kevin's done a great job with that product over the years, and it's pretty sweet now. So yeah, that's good stuff. So I want to add in on the rating and the quoting part, these tools. What I think is really important to understand is, where does the data come from, and how is the data supplied to you, and what does it include or exclude? So, for example, DAT, and I actually saw a guy in one of the posts, I think it was on our Facebook group, get in detail on it, or maybe it was in LinkedIn. He knew the exacts on it. It was like, they omit the upper
Top
and lower.
5.
I think it's 15. Is it 15%?
Well,
or is it 5?
I mean, what Hans told us.
I think they told us it was 5%. But this guy was saying, maybe I read it wrong, but they omit obviously a certain percentage of the high and low to make sure that you're excluding the brokers that overpaid and underpaid for whatever reason. It could be because it was critical customer shipment, or it was a carrier that wanted to get somewhere, or they were just, not intelligent enough to price it properly. So it gets rid of those outliers, and it gives you good data. And these are actual loads that have been moved, that they have true data on, and I think it's as recently as 3 days. Sonar, on the other hand, comes from a co-op or conglomerate of like 25 big brokerages that all supply their data and agree to share it amongst each other for the benefit of the entire community, and it's 24 hours old. It's every day it's uploaded in, so you have it the next day. It's really, really cool. That's why it costs so much. But it's really, really accurate in the spot market. I think TruckStop's RateMate comes from their data from their factoring company.
Transactions, yeah.
Yeah, transactions. And the other ones I'm not privy to any. Oh, so McLeod has an internal one that's based off the brokers and carriers that use their platform. So yeah, it's important to understand where the data comes from, what it includes, what it excludes, and how does it translate to you, and what can you take out of it?
Here's the biggest,
just like TMSs, take demos of these rating tools.
Here's the biggest thing, right? Because we've been asked this, and I know, just to give you an example, when we say outliers of rate data, what we're referring to is let's say you're running LA to Chicago, and let's say that lane is, I don't know, $2,500 on average every day, and let's say, 500 loads.
That's definitely not going to be an accurate rate,
whatever.
But sure.
Yeah, just say like 500 of those run per day, right? Just for an example, right? So let's say it's Friday and it's 4 o'clock, and one shipper didn't get a load out they didn't know was going to be ready, and all of a sudden they need to get this shipped to their customer by Sunday, and if it doesn't make it out by 5 o'clock, the load spoils, And they call their broker and they go, I will pay whatever it costs. Pay $5,000, pay $6,000. The load, if it spoils, costs me way more money than no matter what it costs to move us. Open checkbook load, right? That's why these companies exclude those transactions, because that really doesn't tell you anything about the market. It tells you more about what that individual shipper was willing to do with that one individual load. So if the averages are all around 2,500 and somebody's willing to pay $5,000 because they have some outside circumstance, they don't want that to skew the data in one direction or the other. So that's
same with the cheaper one.
Yes.
You might have a carrier that's desperate for a backhaul and offers to take that load for next to nothing. It could be a partial shipment that was tracked improperly or input improperly, so it showed up as a full truckload. There's reasons that they exclude that.
And that's a big one. Probably partial loads probably get booked through their system very much the same way full truckloads are. And if you're moving one pallet, you're certainly not paying for the whole, truck.
The whole truck, yeah. We should do an episode on partials.
It's a good idea.
That's a good topic. So, well, good stuff, man. That's it for our questions today. We had 8 of them, so keep them coming. And every now and then we'll do one of these full Q&A sessions. And I don't think we've skipped anyone's question yet. We've answered everybody, whether it's through email or on the show, and we'll do that until we run out of bandwidth to do so. But you got any What is your prediction for the Super Bowl? I guess we kind of, skipped over your side of it. What do you think?
I think I'm going to go with Cincinnati.
Bengals? You said the Bengals. You're going to root for
I'm going to go for Cincinnati. I'm going to go with Cincinnati to win by a field goal, by 3. Or something low, 2 or 3 points.
If that happens, I definitely will win my bet because I got them to either win or lose by 4 or less. So
I hope it's just this weird. I hope there's some weird thing at the end where there's like some odd scoring. I like Super Bowls that kind of throw the numbers out, where like somebody makes an extra point, somebody misses an extra point, and then somebody goes for 2, and then it ends up being some weirdly scored game. I could just see this going down odd.
Pretty much how this entire playoffs has been.
All of them.
You've had extra points missed, field goals missed, 2-point conversions gone for, made and missed. You've had late game interceptions. You've had the Bills not be able to hold on to a lead with 13 seconds left. Don't get me started.
It's been a wild playoff season. I mean, Steelers shouldn't have made it. I think you guys should have won. I mean, all in all, I think we're going to have an interesting game to watch, so looking forward to it.
I agree, man. I agree. For all those Bengals fans out there, who dey, right?
Who
That's
dey.
what the Bengals fans say. So, good stuff. You got any closing thoughts here, Ben?
Yeah, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
And until next time, enjoy that Super Bowl and go Bills. That wraps up this episode of Freight 360. Check out the show notes for links to anything that we've referenced on this episode. And make sure to visit us online at freight360.net to see our entire library of episodes, videos, blogs, and more.
And make sure to check us out on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily and weekly tips and content. And if you'd like your question answered on the show, fill out the Contact Us form on our site, and we'll see you next week.